First and foremost, thank you for having us back. To grab the opportunity and present. The title of the presentation will be "The Basics Done Right in Turbulent Times." Hopefully, everyone's safe and sound, and their families as well. Let's get on. STATSports in Utrecht. We've been partnering up for a couple of seasons right now, and our main focus is ensuring that our players are ready for match day. The ultimate overarching goal is to win games every week, and STATSports is helping us with providing the clear data to get us to an informed decision making. Well, this is me on the left. Not my best picture, I guess, but we always say practice what you preach. Like you already mentioned, this is my fourth season so far, and I just want to take you through our journey and our mission and vision within the performance stuff to prepare ourselves for a rather uncommon season we're all in. So this is just a brief overview of the topics we'll be touching today. We'll just start off right away with the first one, player profiling. Before this season got started, we first asked ourselves the question, where are we now? And to predict the general fitness level of our players, we at the restart, we've just conducted a test battery to objectify where we are, the current status, and the areas of improvement from our players. So we use this information to set a new baseline level and look at if they have changed over the course of the COVID lockdown compared to the end of last season. So we wanted to start working from here. And what is optimal testing in our opinion? Well, we wanted to use a higher frequency of in-season tests, testing, retesting. So we looked for useful but also easily repeatable test options. And just to give you a brief example, we have musculoskeletal screening with the physiotherapist just to find imbalances or deficits. We do some conditional tests like the yo-yo, but also mass testing and some strength and power diagnostics to also get that into the picture, like counter movement jumps, non-counter movement jumps. So not really fancy stuff, but like I already mentioned, useful information and easily repeatable. Then how hard could we push and trying to push the boundaries up? What we saw an improved aerobic capacity from the mass scores with our players, but a loss in football specific conditioning. We saw that mainly through to the yo-yo results. And we're in a quite uncommon situation that quite early the league got ended, the competition got ended from the previous season. So that loss of football specific conditioning, we've expected that, but we also saw some strength and power decline within the counter movement jumps. So as part of that, we used the off season as a part of the preseason. We gave all the players an individual program which they could work on. And that was some sort of a building block of the football specific runnings. And on their first day back at the facility, like I already mentioned, we've exposed them to some pitch-based conditioning besides the testing we did, just to get them used again, training on the grass, putting on their football shoes again. And last, we also conducted some research. We just looked at the available knowledge on return to play after the COVID lockdown. So first and foremost, we expected a reduced training load with a different context during the lockdown period. It was a higher monotony level. We tried to replicate the demands of the game as best as we could, but it's still rather different than training on the pitch. So the demands were off to that what the players are used to in competition. A modified sleeping behavior, an interesting piece of knowledge we got from our partner Kidman Labs as well last season was that during, mainly during the international breaks, players, they were in their beds a while longer, and then on their way back to the club, not only a reduced sleeping time, but also an increase in your sleeping behavior will increase your injury risk. So that's also something we paid a lot of attention to. And then during a normal off season, we all know that some sort of decline will be present. But what about now? This lockdown period likely lowered the fitness level even more. So what we expected would be like an elevated fatigue level as well as longer recovery times after that period of individual training. Don't get blind doing tests and just look at the results, because we saw in research that a maintenance of some outcome variables were present, mainly jump height and RSI, but we saw an altered coordination or motor control strategy, which well, they reflect a specific aspect of the on-pitch training and competition. So uh, be aware of not just to look at the raw numbers, but also maybe video the players and check if they use altered strategies. This is just the research I've just mentioned, if someone's interested. So then we started preparing for chaos, planning a preseason. If we then take a look at a lockdown training session, an individual training session, we see the intermittent nature of the sport. But if we zoom in on the football specific running part, then we still see that it's rather predictable. And in contrast, the lower portion reflects a medium sized game training. So we started with the general warm up, positional play, all the way up until the game based conditioning. And if we zoom into that in a bit more detail, then we can see over here the medium sized games and also a generic running drill. So it gives us more or less the same speed exposure, but also internal load. But due to the chaotic environment, there's still a difference between game based conditioning or generic running. So the removal of the high speed runnings and, well, the reactive accels, decels, and directional, the critical missing part of training during the lockdown. So where are we going? We know we're going to get an increase in workload and a rapid shift from non-specific to specific work. And we know we need load to withstand the load. And again, we've tried to search for some research in which we saw that the preseason period is hugely important to prepare your players, as we all know. And just to give you a quick example, the teams that performed a greater number of preseason sessions, they had healthier in-season periods, completing a greater proportion of your preseason, higher training loads in the in-season, greater participation during the competitive phase. But what I wanted to mention is that an injury is multifactorial. So the preseason training load volume will only explain a small portion. It's not the complete picture. So always pay attention to workload management, the congested fixtures you're up, but also the communication between your coaching and performance staff. So then our aim for the preseason is to develop our players, their physical capacities, let them build a chronic foundation, prepare them for the various demands of the game, and not just physical, but also technical, tactical, mental. And then if we split that up, we want durable athletes, which are ready to perform. So we needed to develop the physical qualities, but also robustness. We want to meet and exceed our demands, and resilience to tolerate load. So ultimately, the key considerations, what we did, we were in a unique position, like I already mentioned, that our previous season got ended quite soon. So we could plan ahead for the upcoming season. Therefore, we used the longest preseason in club history. We trained for like 10 weeks all the way up until our first game, competitive game. So we had an extended segregated program of distinct training blocks, which I will show well in a minute. We've had some mini breaks to let players well adapt and recover a bit from the training load we were exposing on them. And we used a sequential hierarchy. So just to give you an example, endurance before speed and strength before power. We try to be really agile, trying to well pay attention to the current fitness level of return, transferred players who maybe are coming in later than the start of the preseason. Some pre-existing return to play, return to train protocols, but also, well, we've all done the COVID tests. When a player is tested positive, he has to be in quarantine, coming back in. The fourth, football methodologies. We knew we needed to get back momentum, so we tried to use as much as game-based conditioning, the chaotic, anticipative nature, getting that back on the players, and using the data to drive these sessions. So both the objective, external, but also what the players feel themselves subjectively. And we needed to find the optimal dose response for the individual player. So last but not least, use wellness and readiness to guide our decisions. Just to give you an example, this is one of our players who, well, he went through the entire preseason we've had. So he's built a chronic foundation. If we look at the ratios, it's rather normal, not huge spikes. And we try to build them up as gradually as possible, all the way up until the start of the competitive phase of the season. And then in contrast, a player who suffered an injury during the beginning of the preseason, well, mainly got lost of his chronic load, which got built up in that first week. But due to the extended period we've had, we were able to get him back during preseason, build him up a bit more aggressively, but still being able to start the competitive season. And just to get back on that distinct training blocks, you can see that with player one, we build them up, send them home for a while, build them back up, and then still being able to cope with the load we expose them to. How do we do that with strength and power? We have the philosophy that every day is game day. So during movement prep or warm up, we use micro dosages of strength work, which can be seen on the picture on the right. Stuff like this. Those preps are individually based on the musculoskeletal testing scores we've had done. We had an early exposure to strength, so immediately the first week back in, we started with 2 strength sessions a week. And to do that, we've used the triphasic training method, which we altered a bit. We've started with the isometrics because that's, well, not as neurally taxing as the eccentrics. So we've built our way up from eccentrics to concentrics to eccentrics, sorry. And now during the in-season, we're also doing contrast training. So with every training, we have strength and speed. And for that, we use the basic movement patterns, pushing, pulling, as we all know. And we've tried to individualize them based on the load capacity group. So we've divided our group to low, medium, and high levels of load capacity. And based on that, the drill level design, but also the loads placed onto the player will be differentiated. And we try to daily review days, but also, we're open to adaptation if needs be. Then if you take a look at recovery, first and foremost, we wanted to raise awareness with the players that is an active process rather than just being passive. Over time, you will recover, but you can speed up the process by doing some active work, as shown on the picture on the right. From a staff level, we discussed that we expected some elevated fatigue scores, some soreness scores. And so within the microcycle periodization, we try to pay attention to that. Just to give you an example, in that first block of preseason, we've planned an extra day off in the middle of the week just to give players the chance to gradually expose and get used to that workload again. Then we've given all of our players the opportunity to buy a performance package, a recovery package, 3-level, gold, silver, bronze, just to get them the basics in home so that they can do some extra recovery work at night. In the evening, because sleep is also rather important. Ice bath, yes or no? Also with the COVID regulations, but we choose not to use too many ice baths because we don't want it to blunt long-term adaptation processes. What we did do was get players into the ice bath only with the feet, just as a recovery process. And then the role of nutrition plays a rather huge role in our view. We're trying to provide fresh and nutrition-dense food, not too many vitamin C, because this also is able to blunt training adaptation. Um, the antioxidants, mainly to mixed berries and stuff like that, to optimize the recovery process. Fuel for the work required. We periodized our carbohydrate intake, well, mainly due to the train low, compete high. Give players recovery shakes with creatine and collagen after a strength session or post match, just to speed up the carbohydrate intake, but also the recovery process. And we've conducted hydration status testings due to USG, to get the player a profile on what amount of fluid they should intake. Long-term athletic development. Our under 23s are at the professional level now for a couple of seasons in the second league of Holland, and this is the first season we have a head of long-term athletic development, and he's paying attention to that, gradually impose demands placed on the academy players and their optimal way of evolving all the way up until the first team. Double sessions, yes or no? We choose to let the academy players who were part of the first team preseason just to focus on single session, football only. So during the second session schedule, they were paying attention to either recovery or injury prevention. And as a preventive mechanism, they were placed in that low load capacity group. So again, focus on football first. And the extra recovery sessions were mainly placed during days off. Again, in that first block, when we had an extra day off, we let them come in, which also give us the opportunity to speak with them, get some extra attention placed on them, maybe to treatment or any other possibility. And we use partnerships with external specialists. And the biggest example maybe is sleep. They can get an analysis of their sleeping patterns, and they ultimately will have some best practices given to them to improve their sleeping mechanisms. Then, to finish up, current challenges. We've had a managerial change, a month ago. This means a different microcycle. Our rest day has changed from -3 to +2, and our periodization model got altered, which places different demands to our players. And there's one research understanding the influence of the head coach, and that is mainly due to differences in their training philosophy or the priorities and drill levels. So what we've done is at a drill level design, we sat around the table and we really were critically in what drills to put on what kind of days, and to let players again gradually expose them to this new philosophy. And then starting from this month, this Sunday actually, we're up for a congested fixture. So we've planned like a shock mesocycle in which we just finished up and are tapering from right now. This is just a research of a practical application of those kind of strategies to improve the endurance parameters, but also with a tapering period to recover from. So some key takeaways: be flexible, easy to adapt and individualize. You're not training yourself. So listen to the players, and maybe even due to low external load, but a higher response on fatigue, you should take that serious and find the optimal dose response for every player. So be proactive and plan ahead for the entire team, for the many, but tailor for the few. Focus on those aspects you have impact upon. Try to build back rhythm, chronic load exposure. Keep it simple and stupid, biggest bang for buck. Do the basics first, then the fancy stuff comes in part. And we all know that in a high performance environment like elite sports, the chaos will come eventually. So we're always on the edge of that. And then last but not least, keep your players mentally fresh. So beware of monotony during these times, also with lots of games being placed on them. So keeping the players mentally fresh is, in our opinion, key to let them excel on a physical level. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity to present.